Good morning and welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Hawk Blogger. Uh, Today is Thanksgiving. It's not for Ray and I because we're recording this at a different time, but you are going to be seeing this on Thanksgiving Day. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody. It is one of my favorite days of the year. Ray, thanks so much for coming on. How are you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Like trying to get through all the power outages and sitting in grocery store parking lots to get Wi-Fi and try to do some work on my computer was a little bit frustrating. Hauling like I haven't moved much wood in a long time, but I had to move a lot of wood this time. Stand up all night trying to keep the fire going, like that kind of stuff. So glad I have the conveniences of life back.
Yeah, it is have a funny way of giving you a little bit. It's interesting being this close to Thanksgiving. It makes you grateful a little bit more for the things
Yeah.
that you take for granted, for sure. What are your plans for Thanksgiving? What do you got going on?
You know what? I'm not a big holiday person,
Oh,
and
okay.
I just it's just another day for me. I just watch sports. I try to hit as many houses as I can for food. So if I get invited, I'm probably coming by at some point to get something, and so I try to eat a lot of food and just kind of hang out. My being divorced, kind of the holiday thing kind of got all twisted up. So it's just easy for me to say, go with your mom and hang out with her family. My family's all back east, and I just kind of it gives me a day off, kind of so to speak.
Well, we might have to mix that up. Get you over to House Nemhauser for some food. What's your go to when you go and you see the spread? What's the first thing you go for Thanksgiving spread?
That sweet potato casserole, like I love the sweet potato casserole. I'd like the if the turkey's done well, and it's not super dry. I can go to that, and then in my family, my sister makes a macaroni and cheese
Mm.
casserole, which is really really good. And then I honestly start looking for the the dessert trays, and I love banana pudding, and so my
Mm.
family normally makes banana pudding. My middle son, has gotten pretty good at making it, so he'll make me some for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so those are kind of my go-tos. The problem is that most people I know are really, really good cooks. And so no matter what they cook, it's going to taste good. And you feel like you have to try all of it. And so then by the end of the day, man, you're just melting somewhere, stuck in a chair, sleeping, probably slobbering all over yourself, snoring.
You're speaking my language, Ray. That nothing better to me than that enjoying that. So, um, let's start by just talking about this game the Seahawks played this past
Mhm.
weekend against the Cardinals. You and I were supposed to talk last week before all the power went out, so we can even talk about the
Yeah.
49ers game. Let's talk about the last two games combined. What's kind of stood out to you watching this team?
Well, it's weird because you would think that guys would show up with energy and uh, just a different type of grittiness every game. But the last two games, especially on defense, man, like dudes have decided not to just be where they're supposed to be. Like, hey, I'm at my assignment, like I'm good to go. But they're dominating their assignment. Like they're when they get to the B gap, they own the B gap. When they get to the A gap, they own the A gap. When they're breaking up passes, they're coming downhill, making big hits and doing that kind of stuff. And that's when you know that what they've been asked to do is starting to click. Because like when you're just trying to be assignment perfect, you're not really you don't really have the same get it doneness that you have when it's just ingrained. It just becomes automatic what you're doing. So when you're thinking it through, you're a hair bit slower, not as aggressive. You're not really focusing on dominating the assignment. You're just going like, man, I got to make sure I'm in the right place at the right time. And so that's kind of what I've seen, especially on defense across the board. On offense, obviously, in that 49er game, Big Abe and Olu brought some stability to the offensive line. You didn't see the right side getting crashed down. The middle of the defense of the offense is pretty stable. And then the thing I like about Abe is not a very vocal dude. but he talks with his pads, and he was doing some things that made, to me, other players take notice. So there was a play down the field. I think maybe the tight end caught the ball and was kind of being held up, and then Big Abe came and pushed the foul, and he ran past several dudes to go do that. And then the next time you saw those several dudes running with Abe, so like that, like those little like attitude changes, I think they brought to it. In this past game, if you look at the Pro Football Focus grades, they didn't look as good. But I haven't watched all of the film for Lucas, but for Olu, I don't understand how the grade was so low. But I thought they played better in this game as well.
Well, that's good to hear. And when you're talking about some of the changes you're seeing on defense and how you're seeing guys not just thinking about being assignment correct, but just dominating their assignments. I'm kind of curious from your playing experience, offensively and just your observation of defensive players. How important is it? Like, people always focus on the athletic ability and the strength and the speed and the leaping and all that. But it strikes me that like a lot of the best players have either amazing instincts or they're so smart in terms of diagnosing and being able to anticipate. They're a step faster than everybody else. And so I'm kind of curious, like, if you're building your perfect NFL player, how much do you think that, especially defensively, like that anticipation or those instincts play a role in making somebody great?
Well, a lot of that that plays a huge role, but a lot of that comes from like film study and really trying to understand what an offense is trying to do to you or what the defense is trying to do to you. So you got to put a lot of time and effort into like really trying to understand that, because then you can anticipate. So for me, like I always tell my son, and this is what I did as an offensive lineman, like I watched every possible thing I could watch about the guy I was playing. Like what pass rush he uses on on the plus 20, what pass rush he loses on the minus 20. What is the time in the game? Is it like in the last 2 minutes of the game, or is it in the first 2 minutes of the game? Is it in the middle of the quarter? Is it in the middle of the field? Like if he's like lined up tight, if he's spread out wide, if he's head up, if he has his right hand down, his left hand down, his right foot back, his left foot back. Like you try to find all those little things, not so that you can go like, oh, his left foot is back, he's going to do this thing. It just puts yourself in a place to anticipate like that this may happen. And so then you tend to be a little bit quicker. When I first came into the league as a rookie, man, it was survive in advance. Like I was just like, man, I just hope that I can get my hands on this person and then keep them from getting to the quarterback. And then as I started to learn how to watch film and understand how to study players, then you start to have that anticipation. And so I think Leonard Williams talked about that a little bit this week when he, for whatever reason, he wasn't practicing, but he spent more time watching film. So there was a play he was able to diagnose and got a tackle for loss. And so like those types of things, that's when you start to elevate your game to the next level, really. Like it's when you can start to study film like that. Like at one point, I would go sit with the quarterbacks and like try to understand what they were looking at the defense, what they're being coached. How do they know when people are blitzing? Like what coverage they're in when they tend to blitz, like all that kind of stuff. Because then that's just more information for me. I can look up and see in the secondary, oh, the safety's starting to kind of ease down. The linebacker's kind of getting wide. So I know my guy's probably going to go inside because you can't have three dudes going to the C gap. So that he has to go somewhere, so like you have to anticipate stuff like that.
Do you, with this kind of resurgence from the defensive side, how much of it do you think you credit the coaching staff? How much of it do you credit the players? How much do you credit the personnel department and the changes they've made of who's playing back there? How do you kind of allocate credit there?
Well, I don't know if you can do it like evenly, but at the end of the day, the players have to go out there and execute it, and if they can't execute it, then you have to find people that can, and that's what they've been able to do. But I do think that I think there was a report a little bit about Jaron Reed talking about how the Legion of Boom practiced, not just how they play, but how they practice and how they approach practice. I think that has a lot to do with it too. Like sometimes you're just trying to get through practice. Like you're not really. The Legion of Boom was playing the game in practice, and so it was just a totally different mindset. And so I love some of the changes they've made. I've always liked the personnel that they had on their defensive line and those outside linebackers. Then it just comes down to them. Like I said, like it sounds like Leonard Williams did. taking the extra step to put in the extra film study to understand, like spending another 30 minutes, like, watching film and not just watching the football and going on and what people are doing, but like actually studying the film so that you can have just a little bit of an advantage. So I think you have to give some credit to the personnel group for like finding, like being able to let go those linebackers and and have to like take all the mud on your face, from everybody, questioning everything you were doing. But they found the need to change and found people to change it with, and it seems to be working. And then I do think there has to be a understanding of how you're being coached. Like these are all new coaches. Most of them never coached in NFL. All these dudes have been in NFL, been coached by NFL guys. And so like it takes time to kind of mesh all of that too, and maybe a coach has to take some time to understand what button to push, or a player has to take some time to really trust a coach. I had an offensive line coach that came to Detroit right from college and just did do a good job of ingratiating himself to the room. So nobody ever trusted him. So I came like the de facto offensive line coach. So I would hold meetings after practice. I'd hold, like meet with the young guys, like trying to tell me what we're trying to get done and all this other kind of stuff. They just didn't trust the guy. And so I think you have to get that part of it done too, so that the coaching can be effective. So that when they say like, "No, I need you to attack the A gap," and you're not second guessing, going like, "Man, does this guy know what he's talking about?" Like I think I should be over here, and then you kind of play in between, like Leonard Williams was saying at one point, like you're kind of in the A gap, but you're peeping in the B gap. And so I do think it takes a lot of it. But at the end of the day, man, players play, and you have to be able to execute what they call, and the players seem to have taken a step in ownership of that, and then, like I said, been able to play more free and then less thinking.
Well, I'm dying to get into film study with you here in just a second. Before we do that, I just you had mentioned we're not going to look at the linebackers in the film study that much, but you had been vocal about like seeing these guys kind of run into blocks and hitting the wrong gaps. We've done that on this show. I think we've all learned from you and doing that together. It seems like that's made a big leap. How are you feeling about the linebacker play now?
Yeah, I love it, man. Ernest Jones, I think Tyrese Knight is going to learn a lot from Ernest Jones. Obviously Tyrese Knight, I think, is a little bit more athletic, but Ernest Jones plays football like a grown man, and so he's able to take on blocks, get off blocks, and make tackles. He's able to dissect the blocking scheme and kind of move his way into the hole and be able to make the tackle. I think Michael Bumpus on his show made a good point in the San Francisco game where he said Ernest Jones made a mature tackle. So it was like third and short, and Christian McCaffrey and Ernest Jones was, head up. And a lot of times people, go for the head fake or whatever, and then that 3-yard gain turns into a 20-yard gain. Well, he made the tackle. They got the first down, but he made the tackle for a 2 or 3 yard gain versus, going too hard, missing the tackle, and then that being a 15-yard gain. And so little things like that people don't see. Oh, he made the tackle. Yeah, but if he had missed it, that would have been a 15 or 20-yard gain. And so, and then when I look at Tyrese Knight, I think he's learning with his instincts. Like he's a very instinctual player. Like he's learning, watching Ernest, the techniques that it takes to play linebacker. And so you can see him being able to engage and get off blocks, but you can also see him being slippery and getting over the top of blocks, outrunning guards and tackles to the play. And I remember in the training camp, Coach McDonald said of McKnight, man, like he has a funky way of executing the assignment, but the dude makes a lot of tackles. And and right now they need someone that can make a lot of tackles, and he's been doing that.
Yeah. Well, love that. Let's get into some of the clips that you chose. These are all going to come from that Cardinals game. And this first one is, I got both angles, Leonard Williams play. So let me play it for you here. And if you want, I can have just one angle that we focus on. But
no, I think this angle is the best angle. And when I rewatched it, I did realize that guy was a little bit late off the ball. But this is the epitome of what Leonard Williams was doing the entire game. And so on the radio show on Seattle Sports the other day, they were asking me, like, why is this dude so hard to block? And I said, well, he's big, but he's not the biggest guy. He's quick and fast and athletic, but not the most athletic guy. He's strong, but not the strongest dude. But he has relentless effort. To have all of the athleticism and all the skill and talent he has, and then match it with his effort, it makes him be able to be as dominated as he is. And we saw him. This is like early in the game. I think it's maybe like the first or second drive that he made this play, and it was just an indication of things to come because he dominated their offensive line that way the entire game. And Ron Wolfley does their play-by-play, and at halftime he told us that they hadn't seen any defensive line dominate this offensive line this way all season long. And it started with this type of play from Leonard Williams early in the game, just setting the tone that that today is going to be one of those days that you guys are going to have to deal with me, and then everyone else followed suit. So this dude is playing at a all-pro level. He had, I think, 6 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, a pass defense. I mean, the dude was just doing everything that you could possibly ask a defensive lineman to do. And it was just great to see because he's been playing good football, doing a lot of the dirty work. And then on Sunday, he was able to capitalize on the dirty work and actually make some plays.
You know, it's funny you say 2.5 sacks. I mean, the near fumble when he hit Kyler Murray's arm, that would have been 3.5 sacks. You know, it goes down as a hit. But who's the like you see a play like this where it's just like dominant and you just see how amazing these athletes are. You know, you included in that obviously as a top 10 pick. Who was the toughest matchup you ever had in the NFL?
I would say John Randall, because John Randall was kind of like a Byron Murphy build, and like lower body strong, not a very big dude, but this dude had a motor that could go for days. And if you weren't able to match his intensity and effort, he would seriously embarrass you. And he was really good at like all these. His hands were so fast that when you put it in slow motion, you still couldn't tell what he was doing. That's how fast his hands were. And so he was probably my biggest challenge throughout the NFL. And that was when I got to Detroit. I played him once in Seattle, but then when I got to Detroit, because we double teamed him all the time as a tackle, they moved him out to end, so it's less double team. So it's just me and him one-on-one a lot. And I just always appreciated that for a guy so skilled and talented that he had a motor that, I mean, when I say he has a motor, like I would get to the stadium 2 or 3 hours before the game and warm up, and he knew that. And so he would come out on the field, and it would start at that moment. He would stand, I'm on the ground stretching. He's standing above me going like this, like he has a championship belt. If wherever I stood for the national anthem, he would find me and stand right across from me, do the same thing. So it started like in the pregame with him all the way to the last whistle. And so you had to be ready to go.
All right. Well, interesting. Knowing Randall played some time here. These next 2 clips I think I'm playing these back to back because I think you intended to show both of these. They're very similar running plays. This first one is Kenneth Walker not gaining, I think, necessarily what you wanted to see. So let's watch this play in action.
Yeah. So the reason I put this play on here is because the Seahawks, when you run, and this is really hard to do because I love K9, and you can't, there's some things about him that you can't take away. You got to allow him to do it. But I do think that sometimes you got to go on this play. You have to put your head down and just go get the yardage. Because when you run a counter play, which is you're blocking down on the front side and you're pulling the backside guard and the backside tackle, sometimes that tackle is replaced by like a tight end, but it's still like a counter. That is you telling the defense that we're going to take our power and we're going to punch you right in the mouth. And you can't then have a running back that's looking to cut that back, because then that doesn't set the tone. It doesn't allow the offensive lineman to understand what is happening in the play. And if like you said right here, if he had a little bit more patience, my gosh, like he may not get a home run, but he's going to gain yards. When you're cutting back on a pin and pull play, you're cutting back to where you're pinning people to. So you have no, if you stop the film right here, all the backside people have the leverage because that's where you want them. And so you're running back to where they have the leverage. And so the chance of you outrunning people on this play, if people aren't flying over, if every single defender was on the other side of the Seahawk, on the tip, the beak tip of the Seahawk, then okay, maybe you can reverse field and go back over there. But man, you have at least 5 guys that are leveraged that way because that's where you want to pin them to, and you're cutting back to that. And so I think in those situations, especially early in the game, I think K9 has to be a little bit more patient and just put his head down and go get those 2 or 3 or 4 yards. Of this one right here, maybe a little patience in making someone miss an arm tackle in the hole. Man, this might pop for long yardage. Maybe the guy to the left of Abe there can fold back in and make the tackle, but you're going to gain yards. And so it's a huge difference between 2nd and 7 or 8 or 6 or 7 and 8 and 2nd and 11 or 12 or 13. So you just in those few yards, you're giving the defense a great advantage. And so I just wish on these particular plays that are designed for power, hard-nosed, downhill football, that at least early in the game, man, set the cut back up and just go put your head down, put your hand on Abe's back, or put your face in this between the 7 and the 2, and just run with him right up through there and get those 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 yards.
I mean, Ray, these are the 2 pulling players, Christian Haynes and Abe Lucas. Can you ask for any more from those guys?
No, you can't. You cannot. I guess I say this more than what I thought I said, but putting a hat on a hat. And so in this situation, you have a full body on a full body, and people are going to the ground. And so just a little bit of patience, but you could almost see in his body language that he was looking to cut it back before he even got the football. And it was just like, man, like on this play, this is a tone-setting play. You're pulling your big, bruising right tackle that wants to drive everybody into the dirt. You're pulling him. You're giving him a running head start to smash someone. So just stay with it, bro. Like this is not the play to cut back. And I think the next play, this same exact play, will show you what this type of play could produce.
Let's take a look at that. Here is that next play.
Should look very similar. Before we play it too, this was we learned after the game that K9 went. He's not very a big vocal dude either. He went to the offensive line and the running backs and said, "We have to run the ball to win the game. So let's go out here and run the ball." Well, I think he was telling himself that too. You know what I'm saying? Because this is the same exact play. If he had the same exact patience the first time, you might have had the same result. So it's the same 2 pullers, and you're even getting chased down by the backside safety on this play. Like I think Buda Baker comes in right here, but you have so much. You're committed and convicted by the play call, and then you stayed right with it. And then that first play could have looked exactly like this without, and it didn't even have Buda Baker crashing in from the backside. And so like. This is like one of those when you run counter, it's not always a beautiful play, but it's a physical as all get out play. And like the physical person tends to win. The blocking sometimes isn't perfect. You're not gonna get perfect angles every time, but it's meant to be a very physical. I'm gonna be more physical than you are, and I'm gonna win this physical battle. That's what this play is designed to be, and this is what they did here.
You know what's amazing, Ray? First of all, fantastic 2 plays to show. It really shows the difference. This play isn't even blocked as well as the first one in some cases.
It sure isn't.
Because look at Charles Cross here. Like Charles Cross doesn't get as good of a seal. You don't get as good of a kick out here from Haynes. It's not bad, right? But you got a guy breaking in on the backside. It just wasn't as clean as that first play.
Yeah. And then on that first play, if you roll it back, I think
you want to go to the first play
here. No. I meant this play. If you run it back, there's a situation like he runs through this arm tackle right there, and on the first play, he had the same opportunity to run through that same dude's arm tackle, and and he might have been to the safety. And so this is why, like, I love K9. I love his explosiveness. I love that he could make something out of nothing. But like, this is what I said during the bye week. They have to figure out how to marry how they want to block and design plays for the offensive line with the type of runner that K9 is, because they don't necessarily match. And so you may have to say in some situations, K9, we need you to go just put your head down and go get those 2 or 3 yards. Like we do, this play at this point in the game doesn't need to be a home run, because this play right here is designed to be a tone setting play. And so maybe at some, like, in my opinion, you should never cut a counter back, because, like I said, you're pinning everybody back to where you're cutting to, so you have no help over there. But it's specifically on these types of power. So power is when you pull the guard but not the tackle. Counter is when you're pulling the backside guard and tackle, and then sometimes that tackle is replaced by a tight end. I think we saw Sundell did it with the tight end. He and the tight end pulled and did it. So it's these plays are designed to be punch you in the mouth type plays, and you need a running back that's saying, okay, let's go punch him in the mouth type of play. And it sounds like late in the game when they needed to run the ball, K9 delivered that message to the team, but also to himself to go get the yardage.
We got a couple more plays to look at with Big Ray Roberts on Big Ray's Rewind. It reminds me, do you remember back in 2011, the Seahawks had traded for Marshawn Lynch in 2010. They were struggling. We weren't a very good team in general. Had struggled to run the ball, and they were going into Dallas. And Tom Cable had this like conversation with Marshawn Lynch and convinced him, like, you gotta hit this here. You cannot just pick whatever thing you want. Like, you gotta trust me. You gotta do it. And Marshawn did it. The rest of that season, the running game was completely different. 140, 150, 160. So this isn't unique to Kenneth Walker. A lot of running backs feel like they got to pick their hole, and they're just going to create the space. How do you get through? And like, does it take a certain amount of credibility? Does it take a proof point, like seeing the success? How do you get through to a running back to trust what's been a very struggling offensive line?
Yeah, I think he has to see success in it. Like you just said, like that last play, I think, because then Charbonnet came in and ran the same cylinder type play and had some big yardage. So you have to see it be successful, and then you trust to do it. And I always talk about when Barry Sanders rushed for 2,000 yards. There was a point in the season where I just couldn't understand why he was cutting it back. And so we didn't have the video on the sideline like they have now. I just took the photos and I said, hey, Barry, like, what's making you cut this back? And he goes like, well, that double team between you and the tight end, there's nobody up on the linebacker. And I said, well, if you give me like a split second longer, dude, I'm working up to the linebacker. So you have to trust that I'm gonna get there. And so when he did that, and then started trusting the offensive line like that, we went our first 2 games, we had 53 yards. He had 53 yards rushing combined. The next 14 games, we rushed for over 100 yards for 14 straight games, and he rushed for exactly 2,000 yards. Because then he found some success in us and trusting us, and then that kind of changed what we're doing, because he wasn't just always just cut back dude. Like, he would just hit the front side and just outrun everybody, touchdown. And then as soon as he's hitting the front side and everybody's starting to flow, like you start to see that backside linebacker flowing over the top, and that's when he would put his foot in the ground and then cut it backside. So then it was a win-win situation. Like, he couldn't lose in that situation. And so I think hopefully Kenneth saw some trust in some of those plays near the end of the game.
What's really interesting there, Ray, is it makes me think about on the defensive side, excuse me, Jaron Reed, Leonard Williams, clearly established veterans, respected voices in that room, and they can go to the linebacker room and say, like, you guys, we need you fitting this hole. Like, we're doing our thing here. Like, you can have that conversation and have a little bit of respect and like maturity and veteran presence. Offensive line, Charles Cross is the best player. He's also the youngest player on that line, and not the most vocal guy. And so, Lincoln Tomlinson hasn't necessarily played well enough to be the guy to go in and say that. So it feels like somebody's got to have that conversation between Kenneth Walker and the line. And maybe part of what's a challenge right now is they don't have the voice to really have that discussion.
Yeah, and maybe I'm assuming that they haven't done this, but maybe they have. I don't want to say that they're not. But like what came from that talk with Barry is then every week Barry would come and sit with us, like like on our Friday practice, when it's light, and we would watch the film, and he would tell us what he's saying, we'd tell him what we're saying, and that wasn't like a coach thing, that was just a player thing. Like, hey, we're gonna spend half hour watching, 30 minutes of more film. Let's just do this together, and so everybody can see the same stuff. And so I remember there was a Chris Carson, I think he was a running back when they went to London. I can't remember. But I remember I was on the train with Posick and George Fant. And I said, hey, man, have you guys ever thought about just meeting with the running backs, just without the coaches, and just talking through like what it is that you see and what everyone's trying to get done? They're like, no, we've never done that. I said, you guys should try it. And so then they pulled it together, and they met with the running backs, and they had these little meetings, and they would just kind of really understand what was going on. And because you see it, like obviously the coaches are drawing the plays up, watching film, but sometimes you're on the field, it's just another piece of, when you're playing, there's another little piece of information that you're getting. I can't quite put my finger on, but you're out there. And so that gives you a little bit more information than the guy that's just calling the play. And so you can share those types of things. And you can say, like, this is how I'm trying to set the block up, or I'm trying to leverage his inside shoulder or his outside shoulder. The running back is like, hey, I'm trying to get them to fly over the top so I can cut it back, or I'm trying to attack the C gap so I can cut it back to the B gap. Like, so you get to have like those types of conversations. And I don't know that it takes like a big superstar person to do that. It just takes someone willing to say, hey, man, let's try this, and see if it works. And I think the Seahawks could maybe benefit from that and doing that. And like you said too, like most of the veteran success are out on the edges, and then obviously Geno. So you don't have like that voice in the trenches on the offensive side of the ball that can kind of pull people together. So that would be something. If I talked to him, that would be something I'd tell him.
Well, sticking with the offensive line, this is I've got both views of not such a great rep from a veteran offensive lineman. This is Laken Tomlinson, number 70 here.
Yeah, and like honestly, like this is what makes it hard for Grubb to call running plays, is because you can sometimes, we saw on the one play where the safety came free, Buda Baker came free from the backside, but the front side was blocked well enough that you're able to keep running the football. But when you have a guy running free on the front side of the play, man, it's just like, now you're like, man, I don't know if I can call that play again. Is Tomlinson going to make that block? Is he athletic enough to take on that, to block that linebacker? Like all those different kinds of things. And so this more than anything, to me, is what kills our running game, because it happened on the other side with Bradford. It's happened in this game with Haynes. It's happened all throughout the year. Connor Williams, when he was in there, he totally would miss guys. And so it makes it hard as a play caller to come back to that and go like, man, I don't even know if this dude can make the block. You may be in the air with the offensive line coach going like, hey, man, like, can I call this again? Can I trust it, Thomas? Because this should be an easy block for him. Like it is in space against a better athlete, but this dude has played a lot of football. So if he's attacking this thing from the inside out, that guy should not be able to beat him to the inside like that. And if he makes that block, there's a chance that this play is going to the safety. And so when they say like, man, the running game is close, it is close if you can make that block right there. But man, we haven't proven that we can make that block consistently, and they have to be able to do that.
Why? So we've done this enough now together, and we've unfortunately seen enough Laken Tomlinson plays. When he misses, he almost always misses to the outside. Like he gets beat inside.
Yeah.
And like I'm looking at him here, he's looking here. He's almost like he's looking at this player and not looking at is there any chance that Olu's supposed to be here? Like why is
Olu's going to number 7. Olu and Haynes are going to number 7. Yeah.
So why?
and
What
then
possible reason would it be he have to be like he's not even really engaging? You can see it in his body language. He's almost surprised. Oh wait, I'm supposed to block you. Like he's two steps beyond beyond the guy he's supposed.
I think his leverage to the linebacker wasn't quite right. Like he was trying to really attack the linebacker's outside shoulder, so that's where his angle was going. And what he should have been doing is his angle should have been like his inside of his left shoulder to his helmet, and just track that. And then when his helmet started to go inside, then he would almost run right into him. It would have been a like straight up block. And then look at the hole. Even with Charles Cross falling to the ground, look at the hole that's right there. If he just covers that guy up, there may be a safety folded back in there or something, but this is going to be like a pretty big gain for Charbonnet right here. You're going to get like 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 yards with the way he runs. You maybe his 10 or 12 yard run, and so it's like, gosh almighty, like can we just, that's for this dude to play as many games as he's played, basic. This is not asking you to do something that you can't do. It's not asking you to do something you haven't done hundreds of times. And it's not asking you to do something you haven't done maybe thousands of times if you count how many times you've done it in practice. This is something you should be able to do in your sleep. And like you said, he's a dude that always gets beat from his left shoulder to his right shoulder, right across his face. And I don't know if that's like a athletic thing or a attention to detail thing, or he's an older guy, he's played a lot of football, maybe he just can't make that adjustment. He's more of a straight line blocker type of dude. But man, like this is what makes it really, really, really hard to call running plays. When I played for Howard Mudd, he would say the very first thing that messes up the running play is when you get penetration in the backfield. Like the penetration in the backfield makes the running back have to make a cut before he gets to the hole, before his instincts tell him that he needs to make a cut. And then you have that opposite color jersey right there. And so then the play is discombobulated right from the beginning. It doesn't matter how well the other 5 or 6 or 7 dudes are blocking. If the one guy allows this type of penetration, the play is dead unless the running back does something incredible, runs through a block, cuts it to the backside, spins, jumps, all this other kind of stuff. And so this is the type of stuff as an offensive line, like you have to say, like, to give our running game a chance and to give Grubb confidence to keep calling the running plays, I have to. With everything I have to at least cover this guy up. If he's going to kick my ass, he's going to have to kick my ass 4 or 5 yards down the field. He's not going to beat my ass right at the line of scrimmage, because then that blows up the whole play.
A couple other things I want to call out here that I noticed as you were talking through this. There's no doubt about the Laken Tomlinson piece. That's very obvious. But there's an other part here. Like the guy that ends up starting to make the tackle is the guy like Lucas is blocking. And it seems like Christian Haynes is not able to get to his guy, and he ends up knocking Lucas off here. Also, Cody White, he runs right by his man. So like if you watch what happens to Lucas first. Lucas can't block anymore because he's getting blocked by it's almost like a twist, I guess, but I don't know if that was intended by the defense. And then White, he also completely overruns his block. So yeah, like
I would say in the line play, that's just the cost of doing business. There's nothing wrong with what Christian Haynes is doing right here.
Okay,
it's just that in the cost of doing business, man, these dudes aren't going to just stand still once you put your hands on them. They're going to start moving, and so when you're 2 feet from another dude, there's chances you're gonna run into him. The guy over Abe is just pursuing the ball, and it just so happens that they ran into the pile right here because Abe normally does a pretty good job on that backside cutoff. And so, but the problem here is, like, maybe if that defender isn't right in the hole when he gets the ball, maybe the runner is ahead of that before that guy can get over there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then with the receivers, man, like sometimes you just get what you get with those guys. Like I think he was trying to make sure he got inside leverage because of all the penalties you can get with, like, how guys are coming back to the ball for the blindside hit and all this other kind of stuff. But it looks like he may have run too far down in there to get to the defender. But that stuff that in the line, that's not a fault of Christian Haynes or of Abe Lucas, that's just like a cost of doing business in the trenches kind of play. Sometimes your legs get taken out, you trip over dudes, like that just kind of happens.
That's a lot of white jerseys and a lot of blue jerseys.
Yeah,
Just watching.
exactly. Yep.
Not good. Not good. Let's look at
Yeah.
one more. We got this play from Devin Witherspoon. I'll roll this for you. Tell us what you see.
Yeah, the thing I want you to see on here, this dude, more times than not, is the smallest guy on the field. But he embodies what Coach McDonald wants this defense to be. So I guarantee you that I don't know how vocal he is in the locker room. I know how loud he is on the field. But I guarantee you, just by this dude's presence and how he plays football, that people watch and go like, we have to match what this guy's doing. Not only is he like setting the edge, but he's keeping his shoulder square. He's keeping his outside hand free. And then he disengages the block and goes and makes a great tackle on a really tough running back. And he's the smallest guy on the field. This is what you got to love about this dude. Like a few weeks ago, they were talking about, well, he doesn't have the stats and stuff, but that doesn't mean he's not playing good football just because they're not throwing it his way and he doesn't have the pass breakups and all this other kind of stuff. But if you watch how this dude was born to be a football player. And it didn't matter if you put him at quarterback, at linebacker, at freaking receiver, at running back, this dude was going to have an impact on football in his life somewhere. And the thing I love about it is that he does everything that they want him to do there. He has recognition. He has engagement. He's physical in his engagement. He sets the edge with the assignment that they want him to do, and then he disengages and makes a physical tackle the way they want them to make physical tackles. That is what they want to be on defense. That is what you saw in Leonard Williams. That's what you see in Ernest Jones. That's what you see in Tyrese Knight. That's what you see in Kobe Bryant. That's what you see in Julian Love when he's playing coming downhill. That's what you see with Mafe. That's what you see with Derek Hall. They have the pieces. They have the guys that can play the way that they want them to play. Now it's just a matter of stacking all of those positive plays, positive experiences, executing the defense at a high level, and just continuing to build the confidence so that you can then play free, like we were talking about earlier, where you can play free in the defense. And you're not just playing to the assignment, you're playing to dominate the assignment. And in that situation, sorry about that, I got excited.
I love it.
In that situation, Devin Witherspoon dominated the assignment. And he wasn't just there going like, hey, I'm just kind of holding ground. I'm going to get pushed to the outside and let the ball turn back inside. No, he got up, kept his outside hand free, made his assignment, and then was physical on the tackle. That's dominating your assignment. And so that's the one reason I wanted to put it on there, just so you could, when I say dominate your assignment, that is dominating your assignment. And that's playing the type of football that Coach McDonald wants them to play.
I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome to see, awesome to hear your passion about it. There's one other thing I wanted to just call out, because you mentioned it before we started looking at film, which we're not really focusing on linebackers here, that Tyrese Knight can learn from Ernest Jones. And I noticed when I watched this clip the first time, notice the synchronization. Like, they almost are moving on a string. Like, watch just before the snap. Watch how, like...
Oh, that's
right?
funny.
Right? Like, they look like the same player.
That's hilarious.
So, I mean, like...
Oh,
that's not an accident, right? That's not a coincidence.
I don't feel like it is, because that's pretty strange that they would the same foot, the same rock, and everything. Even their stance is real similar. Yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, he's learning from somebody out there, and then man, they're in there making that play. So
yeah. So I think there's reason to be excited about how these dudes are playing on defense. Like, yeah, we thought they had corrected it, and then it didn't. But they've played two pretty good offenses, and they've been able to shut them down. And I don't think people really have a true understanding for how impressive it was that they shut down the Cardinals offense, especially running the football, because Connor Williams is like in the top, rushers
James Conner
in the league.
James Conner. Yeah, I knew he meant
James Conner. But if you combine his rushing with Tyler Murray's rushing, they're one of the top 5 rushing duos in the league. And so they were able to shut down both of those dudes. And it would have been great to be able to shut down one of them. and but they shut them both down, and that is a tremendous effort around not just knowing your assignment, executing your assignment, and then dominating the assignment the way that Big Cat was, the way that Devin Witherspoon was. Like that, it takes that type of effort to shut down that type of team that was hot too, coming into this game.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that watching that game in real time that just, well, I'll start before the game. I was like, how do you rush Kyler Murray? Because if you get out of a gap, you create a lane, that guy's going to bust one for 50, 80 yards. You don't know. But at the same time, you cannot just let him sit comfortably in the pocket. Back. And so I was nervous ahead of that game. I was like, that's a tough matchup. I was shocked. I don't know if I've seen I can't remember the last time I saw a more well-coordinated pass rush that consistently was collapsing the pocket from all sides without giving any lane. And you could see Murray just feel it. You could see him get uncomfortable, and time and again, he was either getting sacked or he was like, he just had a terrible game for the most part. And it wasn't because he was a bad player, it's because the Seahawks did not give him an opportunity. It's tough to do that.
Yeah, it is. Like in our pregame show, we always have to pick the key hawk of the game. And so every now and again, I have to go off script because I can't find one person. Robert Turbin is the first one that did this, and he picked a group of people. And so I said, I'm about to pull a turbo. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, my key hawk is going to be the whole defensive line. Because if they get out of sync in how they're rushing Kyler Murray, he's going to have a field day. And there's a clip from early in the season. I forget who they're playing. He was scrambling, and at about the 50-yard line, he put up the peace sign and just outran everybody to the end zone. I'm like, we can't have this dude putting up the peace sign 70 yards from the end zone. And so I said, so it's going to take a coordinated effort for this to happen. And so right off the bat, Mafe got a sack, and then Big Cat started doing his thing. Tyrese Knight got a sack, so they did a really good job of, like you said. And there was one play where he was scrambling to their sideline, and Big Cat just took an angle to where you weren't going to escape him. And Tyler Murray just slid to the ground. That was like one of the Big Cat sacks because he chased him down from the inside out. And so they did a tremendous job, man, because that dude was playing some really good football, and he's super, super fast. In a pregame, Ron Wolfley was talking about how he's elevated his leadership and all this other kind of stuff. So the dude was playing some good football. So it wasn't like we were playing a bad football team. Playing a good football team that was playing some good football, and they were able to shut all that down. And so that's a testament to them really believing in the process, believing in what they're doing, and then dominating their assignments.
So let's turn our attention for the next few minutes as we wrap up here with Big Ray Roberts on Big Ray's Rewind. Looking ahead to the Jets, going into New York, facing a Jets team that's been struggling, that's fired their coach, that's fired their GM, have an older quarterback who's kind of had an up and down year. What do you want to see in this game? What do you expect to see in this game?
Well, hopefully, I think they have some dynamic players. So, Aaron Rodgers from the pocket can still spin the thing. Can't move as well as he did. Breece Hall, a very good runner, can catch the ball out of the backfield and do some damage. They have Adams over there, Wilson. They have some dudes that can do some damage on offense. But the thing we have to do is keep them angry with each other. And the way you do that, the way you do that is get those 3 and outs, get them off the field, create some turnovers, like get them to start going like, oh, here we go again. Because I don't care how great you are when you're playing bad and it's just going all downhill. That does creep into your thinking when you go like, oh shit, we can't get anything going. And so you have to. I was thinking about the Dennis Green quote back in the day, like they are who we thought they are, and we let them off the hook. Well, you can't let them off the hook. They have to be who you thought they were, which is a team that's struggling, a team that is like an AAU type purchase for hire for win type of team that hasn't quite pulled it together. And then you have to make sure that they stay that type of team that hasn't pulled together on offense. And then on defense, I think you have to really this defense has an opportunity. They can rise up and play some really good football. Last year, they were one of the top defenses in the league. I'm not quite sure where they are right now. I haven't looked at the stats, but they have some defensive linemen that can get after it. They have some defensive backs, Sauce Gardner, the kid that was here for a little bit. They're playing he might be the best DB they have. Sauce Gardner hasn't been playing all that great. Yeah, DJ Reed might be the best DB they have. So they have some ballers over there, but they have to, I think, offensively protect the ball. Got to figure out this red zone thing. And then if we can get between Charbonnet and K9, if we can get close to like 105 yards combined with them, I think they'll have a good game and come out victorious.
Do you think, McDonald said he thinks that they're making progress the last couple of weeks? They made some adjustment to how they're running the ball. Obviously, the numbers are not bearing that out yet, but he said the same thing about the run defense when it was looking real bad, and then it started looking pretty darn good. Can you see the potential that this could not necessarily be great, but can it get back to just being competent, like an okay running game? Like, I mean, just not painful to watch?
I will say Bradford getting hurt, I think may have missed, and I never thought I'd say this, but I think Bradford getting hurt may be just a little bit of a setback, because what I was seeing, like when they say like the running game is close, but you were at the game, you were like, close to what? Like destruction? You know what I'm saying? And, but when you watch the film, like I said, like the play I showed, it's one dude that is like falling apart, and it's not about ability or anything. It's just like for whatever reason you totally miss a guy, and that could have been a 6 or 7 yard gain. You know what I'm saying? Or K9 not just going and getting the 3 or 4 yards. So there's like little things like that. What I was saying with Bradford and Olu is they were having really productive double teams. They were actually doing a good job of double teaming folks, moving them, and then Olu was going up to the next level. But there were breakdowns in other places where the running back didn't get to take advantage of those double teams. So when they say it's really, really close, it is close. It's almost like telling the offensive line, like, today, don't take turns being the dude. Because that's what has been happening. It's like every play, it's like, oh, Charles fell. Well, then the next play, Thompson missed a guy. The next play, Olu may have, slipped or missed a block. The next time, Lucas didn't get the cutoff backside. It's like if they can eliminate that type of play, then I think they can get to having a competent, complementary running game. And then there's going to be times where K9 is going to be able to do his thing and make a big play. And then it'll make the running game look all the better. Like he might have a 50, 60-yard run, but maybe an average like 4 yards a carry. But if you take that away, you might only average 2 yards a carry. But it'll look better because you're being able to give him a chance to be explosive.
Two other things before we close here, Ray. One, Mike McDonald was quick to say, don't assume it's going to be Christian Haynes starting this week. It might be Sataoa Laumea. What did you make of that? And I don't know, like obviously didn't get a chance to see a lot of Laumea during preseason, so I'm not asking you for a scouting report there, but what do you think they would hope to see from him? But what do you think it does say about their perspective on Christian Haynes?
Well, I think what it says to me is that you have two rookies, and like this is the surprise that I had when they kept all these rookie offensive linemen, because those become your backups, and so you have Sundell, Haynes, and Jarrell, and this Mamea. They're all rookies, and so you can't just you want them to battle for that. You want the best of those dudes to rise to the occasion. So I think you have to keep the competition open. And then for Christian Haynes, to me, there are some times where in your attempt to do good, you make it worse for players. I understand that they were trying to create competition between he and Bradford, rotate them in and out of the game, giving them opportunities to play and all this other kind of stuff. But the opportunities were always in response to what Bradford was doing. So you're not really the guy. You're just the guy next to the guy. And so you're never in a headspace where you're going to go take over the spot, and you're a rookie. So to try to rotate in a rookie, to try to get him acclimated, to try to give him a chance to win the job, man, that's really hard to do, bro. I'm telling you, so I think they did him a disservice from the very beginning with that. And so now he gets into the game after Bradford gets hurt on Sunday, and he just looked atrocious. He was having a tough time. He was having a really hard time out there. And I think a lot of it is like maybe his confidence is a little shot. He was inactive, healthy inactive for a couple of weeks, like all those types of things. And so I think it's become like a mental thing for him. And so I think they have to create this type of competition to get the whoever can break through that to rise to the occasion to be able to step in there and play. But I think it's unfortunate they have all those rookies as backups. I understand you're trying to develop players and you want to develop the way you want them, but man, in the grand scheme of things, that's a tough spot to be in when the only people you have to turn to are rookies who have very little to no reps in this league. So I think he needed to leave it open for competition that way so that they can get the best of all three of those dudes to figure out who's going to get in there and play.
Last thing here with Big Ray Roberts, Olu Oluwatimi. We touched on him a little bit. Haven't had a chance to really talk to you about it since he got his chance against San Francisco. Had a great game there. Played against Arizona. What's your take on how that's going and what you want to see from him the rest of the way?
I think the thing, and this is, Olu's a good friend of mine, so I talked to him quite a bit. And so the thing that we've talked about is making sure that celebrating your victories and keep stacking like your wins, like in your reps and what you're doing, and keeping all the things that you're doing well, keep stacking those things. But you have to also continue to self-scout and like understand what teams are trying to do to you, because you may not be able to fix that in a season or during a game, but you can have a plan for it. And so like trying to have a plan for like, hey, if this happens, like this is how they're going to try to attack me. Or if they have a nose head up, like what are they trying to, they're trying to, as an athletic dude, they're trying to beat me with athleticism. Like you have to understand like all those different little nuances that they're trying to get accomplished and then really have a plan for those and then keep stacking the wins. I think Olu gets in trouble when he gives up his leverage. Like he's not a very tall guy, and so sometimes he gets straight-legged, and then that's when he kind of gets pushed back a little bit, or he doesn't get the movement that he wants. But when he's like has a good power position where he has bend at his knees, at his ankles, and his waist, he has enough power and strength to play this game for a very long time. So he has to keep reminding himself of that, because there's times in the game where in the running game where he kind of gets tall a little bit. He doesn't get the type of movement that he wants. And then the other thing that we've worked on is like just finishing. Finish. Because like you can have the worst step, you can get into a block and it can look nasty the way you get into it. But if you keep your feet active and keep driving and pushing, sometimes the finish makes the block. And they may make the tackle, but they may make it 4 yards down the field. And so like this idea of just finish. Don't just stop with that little clock in your head sometimes. Just go to the echo of the whistle. If you got to be a jerk about it, be a jerk about it. But he has to play that way.
It's great seeing him get the chance and take the most of that opportunity. And we've seen a lot of that from Seahawks players recently. Yeah. So Big Ray, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving and find all the food that you can wherever you can and take a nice big nap. And we'll talk again in a few weeks.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. And I love that like you keep putting in the work and keep trying to do good stuff and you have a good following. I love the way you have some challenging questions and comments and stuff like that. But it's not like just, off the top rope, like some people, come, kind of crazy with it. So I appreciate the way that you're going about it and what you bring to it. So keep up the good work, homie.
Appreciate you, man. Big Ray Roberts. Make sure you check out Big Ray's Garage Grind. Always great stuff there. Ray, have a great rest of your week.
You too, big dog. Peace.
That was Big Ray. Great stuff from him as always. Folks, if you haven't given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. If you've been doing super chats and you're wondering why I'm not responding, it's because this isn't live. Sorry. It was pre-recorded. I'm cooking for Thanksgiving right now. I might be doing a live Thanksgiving stream. Who knows? People want to see me cook. I don't know why, but I will be cooking. When you're watching this, I will be in the middle of making something. But yeah, please give the show a like, click subscribe, and thank you. If you did give a super chat, appreciate it. Head on over to jkboots.com. Use promo code HawkBlogger today on Thanksgiving. The special Black Friday deal that they're doing is any Western boot that you buy gets a free cowboy hat. So I'm not personally a cowboy hat guy, as you can see, but pretty cool to get a cowboy hat. And you use code HawkBlogger. It will get you a chance to walk away also with a pair of Seahawks themed boots, blue bison leather. They're amazing. They're gorgeous. And and contribute to the Wildland Firefighters Foundation to get a pair of boots to a wildland forest fire for the Pacific Northwest. Keep us safe, keep the Northwest beautiful, and help make sure that they, as firefighters, stay safe with the gear that they need. Spokane-based company, really, really great people over there. Highly recommend it. I now have a pair. I'll even pull them up so you can see them right here. This is my pair. I think these are the Canyons. They're amazing. I will say they are very manly. Very manly. Look great with a pair of jeans, and super, super happy to be wearing them. Very comfortable, very supportive. I'm almost not worthy. They're like, the boots are better than I am. That's for sure. Use code HawkBlogger, gets them for you or for somebody else. You will make somebody really happy. And go over to ftnfantasy.com. Use promo code HBAM, gets you 15% off of a subscription, less than $8 a month. I'm a subscriber. You definitely should be too. And you get access to Stats Hub, to the Discord channel, to the betting model, to fantasy football information, all sorts of great stuff over there at FTN Fantasy. And appreciate all of you. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. It's one of my favorite holidays. Tomorrow, Mike Sando will be on with me again with a pre-recorded episode. So I will not be able to be live for that, as I will be flying to New York to cover the Jets game. So keep an eye on that episode coming up Friday morning, 8 a.m. We'll see you then. Until then, I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and now Blue Sky at Hawk Blogger. This has been episode, what episode will this have been? This will be 249? I think it's 249. We'll find out. It'll say it somewhere on the show. But this has been episode 249 of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care, y'all.